Right. Yeah, there's this sort of consciousness, life, the intelligence of life is, if you close your eyes for a moment and then you open your eyes, you see all these familiar things, right? That you have names for. I mean, I close my eyes, I open my eyes, I see sky and palm trees and cars, and I hear sounds that are familiar. So in a sense, this is just being rendered, rendered by consciousness, what this is. And then on top of the initial rendering of what's here, all the names and labels that are given to things very automatically, really just you don't have to go through some process, it would seem. Of course, then on top of the initial labels that consciousness is giving to phenomena, there can be and often are the additional labels of evaluating what's here in some sense, right? Not just what it is, but do I like what it is? Is what is present here okay? Is it of benefit to me? Is it a potential harm to me? A potential threat to me? This interpreting process is just this sort of ongoing part of life, isn't it? So what I'm really inviting here in this time together is to explore experience in some unique ways, particularly in terms of outside of the ordinary context that we have based again on our concepts of what's going on here. Because as it turns out, our experience is wildly different than we think it is. It's wildly distinct from the frameworks that have been placed upon it, the interpretive frameworks. And one I often point out is that our interpretations are suggesting quite powerfully to us that what's being experienced, what's being seen, what's being noticed, what's appearing is made of pieces that are separate from one another, right? Parts and pieces. I mean, that's just taken for granted most of the time. But what's really interesting is that reality can be encountered in a vastly different way, which is that there aren't pieces, that there's a seamless continuum, a whole that's not ultimately divided. It's not divisible, even though it definitely shows up as seemingly divisible and separable. And one way into this discovery of the wholeness that's here, the perspective of wholeness, we could say, the vantage of wholeness, experiential vantage. It's not a conceptual vantage. It might initially you might initially come at it as an idea of wholeness that you're then going to go and try to find, which is fine. But the actual experience itself is what's meaningful. The experience of it as a continuum with no breaks, with no parts, with no gaps, with no boundaries anywhere. And from this vantage, there's an equalness to everything. Everything is equal in the sense of being made of this one single whole, this one single indivisible continuum. And we've been exploring the last few times meeting on these Sundays different sort of doorways into that sameness, that equalness of everything. We talked last week, I believe, about the beingness of everything, the existence of everything. You could say this is one obvious thing that's fundamental to all that's appearing is its appearing, right? It may, again, look like lots of different things that are appearing, but the appearance itself is a single appearance. There's just one appearance. It's like, if you liken life to a painting, you look at a painting and you can describe the painting again from one perspective, like, there's a boat on the lake and there's the people walking in the park, whatever is being portrayed in the painting, right? But the painting is one painting, isn't it? One painting made of paint that looks like a lot of different things going on, right? And can be, in a sense, enjoyed in that way. It's enjoyable to see it as many different objects. Or, watching a movie on a big screen in a theater or at home on your television. And again, it looks like all this activity, all this relationship between these different parts and pieces, people and places and things, and right? And yet it's one image, isn't it? It's one unfolding image because it's dynamic. It's one light show. And life, waking life, if you will, we call our three-dimensional, multi-dimensional existence right here is certainly visually a light show, one light show. So another doorway we can explore a little bit together now into this singularity, into the sameness, the equalness of phenomena is what's basic. Another thing that we could say is basic about everything that's appearing, all the seemingly separate phenomena right now. Right now, I mean, stick with what's right here, your phenomena, rather than relating to what I'm saying as an idea. But what's appearing right now, again, that consciousness may have a lot of names for these different phenomena, does have a lot of names for it. What's really fundamental to all these phenomena is that are appearing is the recognition of them, the seeing of them, right? Whatever is being seen in all its distinct ways it can be seen, the seeing is a kind of profound, mysterious, inexplicable common denominator underlying all the seeming difference and distinction. The seeing, which is here effortlessly, isn't it? Feel that. Feel the way in which whatever it is that's beholding this moment, whatever that is, anything that might appear experientially, thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, images, physical objects, sounds, all of it is being beheld. By definition, what appears is being seen. The seeing of this moment, the knowing of this moment, is absolutely effortless. Eyes open, eyes closed, it's all the same effortless knowing, isn't it? You can't turn it off. You can't, you don't need to turn it on because it's on, because it's intrinsic to what's here. Knowing of what's here is intrinsic to what's here. They're inseparable. The moment's appearance is inseparable from the knowing of the moment's appearance, right? It's one single dance of seeing and seen, indivisible. And there's nothing that needs to be done to conjure this capacity up. Nothing that needs to be done to make consciousness conscious. It's conscious. The seeing is seeing effortlessly. The seeing has a lot of interesting characteristics if we sort of let ourselves just explore it. What's seeing this moment? What's looking? You can't say where it's located, right? It has no findable location. It's just here, in a sense, pervading the entire field of experience. This looking. Everywhere you go in the field of experience, there's the looking, isn't it? It's omnipresent. It's everywhere. It pervades every phenomena, is inseparable from every phenomena. The knowing of this moment, the seeing of this moment, the knowing of this moment is, we could say, very much like a light. It's luminous. It is the light that lights up what's here, that makes what's here visible, that makes what's here beheld, that makes what's here known. The light, this luminosity. It's intrinsic, isn't it? It's just the luminosity is just here. Feel that, the luminosity that's here. It's literally the basis of every moment, the luminosity of it. It's just here lighting up the moment. The moment is lit, isn't it? The moment is lit up, isn't it? Everything is effulgent. Everything is ablaze with this luminosity. It doesn't need to be looked for. It is what's looking. It's right here, the luminosity. It's completely, as I was saying, it's unlocatable. It's spread. Sometimes it's described as like sunlight filling space. The sun fills the entirety of the space, right? The sunlight of this knowing, this luminosity, just fills the whole space, the whole field. Everywhere you go, you find the luminosity. Everywhere you go, you find the light show, because this is the light show. That's luminosity, shining as everything, this knowing. Here effortlessly, here spontaneously, inexplicably. And it's absolutely feel what's looking, feel what's knowing. It's just here. And absolutely can't locate it. You can't find edges to it. You can't find any end to it, any point where it somehow comes to a stop and ends. It's endless, the luminosity, boundless, borderless. It's localized. The knowing, we could say it's here. Here's the knowing right here. Here's the looking. Here's the seeing. Here's the luminosity of awareness. But here is almost meaningless in the sense of, as opposed to what? As opposed to over there? There is no here or there with this luminosity. It's just everywhere. It just shines. There's really no story in it. There's no description. There's just this radiating quality to it, this luminosity. Bright, potent, always here. Feel the way in which everything we could say that's known, all the seeming phenomena, you know. So it's very, very interesting how the known and the knowing, what we call the known and the knowing, we could say sort of show up as seemingly discrete things. Like I could identify, oh, there's sound being known, and then there's the knowing of sound. I can talk about it as if it's two things, right? Like a light shining on some object, you know, the knowing shining on that object over there. The perceiving that's perceiving some perception, right? But take any object of perception, anything that's being known, a thought, a feeling, a sensation, anything. And notice the way in which the knowing and the known are absolutely inseparable. They may show up and be described as separate phenomena, the knowing and the known, but where is it like the knowing goes out from some place and comes to the object that's known, and then that's it? It's like there's the known and the knowing, like two separate things. No, it's like absolutely inseparable. It's like the knowing and the known are, we could call them like, or the subject and the object, they're like two seeming poles of some continuum, but again, it's a continuum. The perceiving and the perceived are a single dance. There's no separation. just luminosity, just knowing. And this single knowing, this single field of knowing, this single field of luminosity, the bright knowing, is completely at ease and at peace, because there's not one thing pushing against some other thing, not one thing in friction with some other thing. There is no friction. There's just luminosity. One thing. One field of knowing. Indivisible. The knowing and the known, a single expanse, boundless. Always here. Never absent. How could it be absent? What would that look like? Really, what would the absence of it look like? Well, it would look like something appearing that we describe as the absence of the knowing, which would of course be known. The knowing can't go anywhere. It's indestructible. Feel that, it's so powerful. It's not conditioned by what's happening.